I'm just going to talk to you through some basics about creating content. Now, this is obviously quite challenging, get quite complicated, but I'm just going to talk you through some basic styles and then give you some homework to do, which will hopefully just get you a bit more confident about the types of ways in which you could create content. But we don't expect you to be Ernest Hemingway, but this will just kind of really help you to get a sense of which style to choose for which channel. There are some really basic rules about creating online content. People tend to skim read, so use shorter sentences than you might normally use offline. Max sort of 15 words is probably quite a good thing to kind of to head for. And also use short paragraphs. Keep as much white space as possible in the text. There's something about being on brand, but that relates very much to another tutorial which talks more about brand and tone of voice. So we won't go too much into that in this tutorial. But another thing to say about the basic rules is that write quite informally and in quite simple language. So it's very, very different from the way that people kind of write quite academic texts or quite in-depth pieces. Just keep it informal and just keep it really simple. And that again is because people tend to skim read, so they don't want to come across words that they don't know the meaning of, for example. And also you don't know who is going to be reading it. So you really need to kind of aim it at the lowest common denominator, which basically means, if you might have 16-year-olds reading it or people with reasonably low literacy levels reading it, just kind of aim it at that. Just keep it really simple, short sentences, short paragraphs. Those are the main things to remember in terms of the basic rules. There are also some quite different styles that you can write in generally. You can be quite informative and factual, and most news articles will be informative and factual, so you won't find too much biased information in there, unless you're reading the Daily Mail, obviously. So that is very much just giving the raw basics, the facts. And then the next level up really is much more descriptive language, very colourful. This is the kind of style of writing that you would find more in novels. And if you were reading more of a feature or a piece in a magazine, that would also tend to be more colourful and descriptive. And then there's also there's also very persuasive text, which is pretty much only ever done in a kind of marketing way. So it's very much trying to persuade people of the value of something. And these can be mixed up. So you can have a piece that is reasonably informative but might put a bit of description in there. You can have a piece that is very colourful and descriptive but obviously might also give factual information. And then you can also have a colourful and descriptive piece that's got a little bit of persuasion in there. But I'll take you through 3 examples of these, so hopefully you'll be able to see the different styles. So if we start off with something that's very informative and factual, and in all of the examples I'm going to give some text which is written about a cafe called the Russet, which is in Hackney, and hopefully by using the same example of the same cafe you'll be able to see the different styles more easily. So this one, very informative, very factual. So the Russet is a cafe and creative space in the heart of Hackney. They offer coffee, cake, changing lunch menus and a range of tapas in the evening, local, seasonal and sustainably sourced. The space hosts a range of events from art to music. Family friendly, they boast a kids menu and play area. Now there's lots and lots of factual information in here. It tells you that it's a cafe, it's a creative space where it's based in Hackney. Tells you a range of things that they actually sell, and a little bit of information about those. So they sell cake and they have a changing lunch menu and they sell tapas in the evening, and those things are local and seasonal. And then they give you some information about the actual space itself, and they tell you it's family friendly and that it has a kids menu and a play area. But nowhere really are they persuading you of the value of going to the Russet or really kind of bringing to life what it might feel like if you visited the Russet. This is the kind of text that you might well find in a directory of businesses in Hackney. So really it's giving you quite unbiased information, the facts, the stuff, and it might also give opening and closing times and things like that. But it's very, very factual. Now let's read something that's a bit more colourful and descriptive, again about the cafe. You walk into the Russet Cafe and the heavenly smell of coffee and bacon welcomes you. The decor is shabby chic and cosy. Pretty wildflower bunches on every table give it a homely feel. Cute knee-high kids run and play while their mums drink wine on comfy sofas. The secluded garden offers shade for adults and a place to play for the youngsters. Now that immediately just feels much warmer, and it's kind of evoking a sense of what you might feel if you went to the Russet, and that's because it uses lots and lots of adjectives, so descriptive language. Heavenly smell, not just smell, heavenly smell. Shabby chic, cozy, those are both descriptive words. Pretty, that's descriptive. Homely, cute, comfy, secluded. So actually, as well as giving you some factual information about these things, like there is a garden, it's adding much more colour by describing what the garden looks like. It's secluded, for example. So hopefully you can tell the difference between the very informative and something that is giving some information but is much more colourful and descriptive. It really brings it to life. And the way that you can kind of really see the distinction is through the use of these adjectives. And something that you could do is kind of go through this tutorial and perhaps kind of look at each of the slides and think about those different words that are being used, where some of them are informative and some of them are descriptive. So now we're going to move on to something that is inherently persuasive. Now, I personally think the colourful and descriptive example was quite persuasive because it made me really want to go to the Russet. But actually, it wasn't kind of hard sell. Now, this persuasive content, hopefully you will see the distinction. The Russet lives up to its reputation as Hackney's best kept secret. A delight to discover after a wander through the park, it sells amazing food at affordable prices, all served up by smiling staff eager to please. Families sit side by side with young creatives. It feels like a space for the whole community. It welcomes you in. This is a place to relax. Now, actually, this is slightly less descriptive than the one before, but it's very biased, and is possibly the kind of thing that might be written actually by the Russet, whereas the piece before felt like it could be written by a blog of a mum who'd been to visit the Russet or someone that had been to visit. This is the kind of thing that you could imagine the Russet might write about itself. I mean, I would advise them actually perhaps not go in too much for this kind of hard sell, but you know, it's something that they might put on its website. So you know, it's said that it lives up to its reputation as Hackney's best kept secret. I mean, is that actually a reputation? That in and of itself is quite persuasive, a sort of sales technique. You know, a delight to discover. That's very persuasive. It says it sells amazing food at affordable prices. It doesn't just talk about the kinds of food, it actually explicitly says it's amazing. It explicitly talks about the fact that the staff are very welcoming and eager. And then the family sitting side by side with young creatives. It feels like that's been put in there to make you think that whoever you are, you should come to the Russet. This is a place to relax is a very kind of persuasive, punchy line. Because you know, that is one of the things that people really look for from a cafe. And interestingly, actually, of all the three, this is probably the least factual. So, I mean, it says it sells food, but that's pretty much it. You don't really get a sense of the kinds of food it sells or the kind of space it has. It doesn't say anything about the events. It doesn't say anything about the fact that it has a garden. So this is probably the least factual. And it's reasonably descriptive. So it talks about, you know, amazing food, that's a description. Smiling staff, that's a descriptive word. But it's much less descriptive. So as you can see, none of these. So the first one is very informative and factual, and that is probably very much 100% in the informative and factual grouping. But the second one, which is the colourful and descriptive one, has a mixture, so it's got some factual information in there. This one's very persuasive, but it has got a touch of colour, a touch of description. So it's quite unlikely that you will really see something that just falls very much into one of those three. But the most likely is the one that's just the just the facts, because sometimes things like directories or news articles like to just give just the facts. And hopefully you can see actually that the very, very persuasive text is perhaps a bit too much. So you probably want to bring it back a little bit, write a bit more, bit more descriptive and a little bit less hard sell if you were writing for a business. And as I've said, these styles tend to be used in different places. So the informative and factual you tend to very much find in a kind of news piece. You probably wouldn't see that in a newsletter or website, because that whoever writes that content on that website or in that e-newsletter, they're trying to, if it's a cafe, they're trying to kind of bring you into the cafe, but certainly they're trying to convince you of something, whether or not it's the benefit of their products, what they're selling. So you tend to only find that very informative factual style within news. And then the second one is a very common for blogs. Actually, it's a very common style for blogs. Very colourful and kind of descriptive. And then the third one, the persuasive one, tends to be very much kind of written by businesses themselves, because other people are unlikely to want someone to come to that business as much. They will just give a kind of usually fairly honest, colourful, descriptive account of, the use of a product or coming to a cafe or restaurant or whatever it is that business is actually selling. So they're used in slightly different ways in slightly different places. You might get something like the persuasive text on a business's website, but as I've mentioned, I actually think that's a little bit too hard sell, so I'd probably take it back a little bit, because people are quite mistrustful of things that are just too hard sell. Ultimately, the russet really needs its customers to make up its mind whether or not the food is amazing. What it does want to do is talk about the kinds of food that it sells in a much more subtly persuasive way. And then another thing to think about, and I'm not going to go too much into detail into all of these, is writing. You might have actually heard of this before, but you can write from the first person, second person, or the third person. You can write in the first person, which means that you will write, I did this, we did this, and that is very much a style that's probably adopted. It's usually adopted by a blogger because they tend to write from their own perspective, but also that's the one that you're probably most likely to use for your business, because actually it's quite nice when your customers read that, because they see you not necessarily as a person, but they will see you as a team. So if you very much use we and us, it's quite warm language, as opposed to the third person, which is basically written from completely the other perspective, and it's it and they. And don't worry too much about the second person, because you are highly unlikely to read in that, but that essentially is he, she, and you. So first person would be I did this, we did this. Second person would be he did this, she did this, you did this. And then the third person is it did this, they did this. So those are the first person is the one really to go for. That's the main one. So it can be a bit confusing, but I've tried again with the russet to give you practical examples of this. So if you just read through this, I walk into the russet and immediately feel at home. It's a relaxed vibe, laid back, unfussy menu all contribute to this, but it's the fact that dogs and kids are running around that really make it feel like my front room. I order a bacon sandwich and amazed at its size. We also get cake for the kids, and the staff make lovely chai lattes for the kids, which they love. I will definitely be coming back. So you can see that's very much written in the first person. You know there is one individual that has gone into the russet, and it's all about their personal experience of that interaction. I walk into the russet. I order a bacon sandwich. I will definitely be coming back. So that was the first person I. So that's an individual, but you can also be first person, a team, a bunch of people, an organisation, a business. So that's kind of first person we, more than one person, because you're giving very much the voice of that. You're the voice of that brand. It just happens to be quite a lot of people working there. So this is a similar sort of example, but from the we perspective. And this is exactly the kind of thing that you might find on the Russet website, in the Russet e-newsletter. So it says, come and find us. The Russet, a hidden oasis at the heart of the creative community of Hackney Down Studios. Elegantly decorated in a rustic upcycled style, we're a home away from home. We serve big breakfasts, hearty lunches, beautiful cakes and modern tapas by night, complemented by interesting wines, local beers and cocktails. We also run events for the whole community, from art, film and music to yoga and children's classes. So come and find us, it says. We're a home away from home. We serve big breakfasts. We run events. So that's very much the first person, but from the we perspective. Now let's go back and think about those three styles. Have a read through that again, and so let me know what you think are coming into play. Just sort of think about that for a minute, and you can comment in the community, and you could have a chat to kind of your mentor about your answer. But just have a read through that, and just sort of really think about what sort of style that is. Is it informative? Is it descriptive? Is it persuasive? Is it all three? Why don't you maybe just sort of highlight particular words that help to kind of help you to think about which one of those three. So perhaps just have a think about which words are descriptive and which ones are very persuasive. So I won't kind of tell you the answer, and it's kind of, but I will say it's not definitely kind of one or the other. It would be a bit of a combination. So just have a go through and sort of think about that, and think about how successful you think that is. If you compare it to all the other examples in the tutorial, so the purely informative style, the very colourful descriptive style, the very, very persuasive style. So just sort of compare it and have a think about what you think. Do you think this is good content? Does this make you want to come to the Russet? Have a think about that. And then you don't get off that lightly, there's a bit more homework to do. So I think it's really important to actually print out and read examples of online content. So choose at least 4 websites. Try and get a bit of a spread of the kind of websites that they are. Choose at least 3 newspaper articles, 3 blog posts, 3 magazine articles, and a couple of e-newsletters. And I suggest you actually print them out and really read them properly. And some of the things that you should do when you've printed them out and read through them is go back over them, analyse their writing style, have a think about how informative they are, how factual, how descriptive, how persuasive. Perhaps even go through with a highlighter pen or a red pen and highlight, underline, information that's factual, information, language that is descriptive, adjectives. Highlight very kind of positive statements that you think are very persuasive, very biased. And then have a think about whether it's in the first person or is it in the third person. So if you actually do that for homework, if you have any problems, just make a note of that and speak to your mentor or go and discuss it in the community to see if anyone else has had problems under the tutorial. In the tutorial under kind of creating online content, people will be commenting in that. So have a go at that, and if you've got any issues or problems, just get into the community and get involved. So that's the basics of creating online content in terms of the theory and the types of styles that you can use. And the only way to kind of get better at this really is to really kind of understand the different use. So that's why we've given you that homework. And then there will just be obviously you can then try and practice. So we'll also encourage you, and there'll be another tutorial to talk about actually creating that kind of content and how to start that, where to go when you're kind of faced with a blank piece of paper. So that's the second tutorial, and then that'll be it for the content generation, because really it's all about practice. Practice makes perfect.